I am NetMoverSitan. In this, I shall cover the rest of the Mirror Dungeon events in the second Mirror Dungeon. Well, those that was introduced in that one. The next Mirror Dungeon encounter I'll be covering will be the Centaur. Another hospital-themed version of the Greek mythical creature. To give it a little background, the Centaurs, they were a race that was the children of Ixion, a demigod child of Ares. And a cloud created by Zeus in the form of Hera. As for why Zeus did this, it was because of a violation of guest-host relations, where he was lustful for Hera at the table in Olympus. Now, this product of a coupling between Ixion and this cloud mated with a number of mares around Mount Pelion. And that created the Centaurs. As for Ixion, due to this immense insult to Zeus for being lustful towards Hera, and that's quite a double standard considering that Zeus slept around. I mean, just look at Hercules. He was an example of that. And that's considering that the thing between him and Hera, that's Sweet Home Alabama to begin with. Okay, let's move on before it gets any more disgusting. Yes, Ixion was punished by Zeus by being first kicked out of Olympus, blasted by a thunderbolt, and bound to a winged burning soda wheel for all eternity, with the help of Apollo. Yeah. Zeus was known for cruel and unusual punishments. I mean, just look at Prometheus, the titan that gave humanity fire, and for his trouble, he was bound to a rock, and then had his liver devoured by an eagle every day. And how was that possible, you may ask? Well, each day the damage caused by the eagle was regenerated. Also that the cycle continued. In fact, death itself would be an escape, and clearly Zeus didn't want that. In fact, based on this, not even family are safe from this kind of punishment. Okay, enough about the background, now for the abnormality. The sinners found themselves in a hospital. It was dark and bleak, like it's always been. From the end of the hallway, the lights flickered and something giant approached. It slid down at a constant pace, making the sound of rusted wheels. A person was tied tightly to the hospital bed, dusty as it was. A patient from the past? There was no point in trying to figure out how long it had been there. It began to move at last, one for the bed, earning the freedom to freely run after too long. It fiercely charged at them, dragging its wheels along. If they decided to run off, by the time they could no longer hear the wheels, they stopped and Well, they turned around. It stood still at the hallway, seemingly giving up the chase. It would one day collapse and the wheels would no longer move, and it would be free to leave. They, on the other hand, would get out with just a few more steps, all with 15 SP less. If they decided to pull the intravenous line out, a check would happen, then, well, it would favour wrath and lust. If successful, it was removed from its body. When this happened, its body regained vigour, as if relieved of some kind of curse. The line was possibly siphoning its nutrition rather than supplying it, and the EGO gift would be gained. If failed, it was found that it was too intricately intertwined to pull out. They felt a string on their hand. While digging through the knots, it was a needle poking into the back of their hand. They quickly pulled it out, but they felt dizzy for some reason, and the Chosen would lose 25 HP. The EGO gift is First Aid Kit, where at the start of the turn, if an ally was under 50% HP, they healed 25% of their maximum HP, once per battle, although it doesn't work if they're dead. Next we have the Smoky Old Man. Now this is either an aberration of the old lady that needs others to listen to her stories, or the lady facing the wall aberration that stares at the wall and reacts badly to facing others, screaming at even the camera that the manager looks at, as if to say, "Stop looking at me!" As for the Smoky Old Man, it lived in a room that wouldn't be out of place as a Japanese apartment, although the room's ceiling was too high, yet so narrow that it felt like a tight space. What looks like an old person was sitting on a chair, staring into a painting on the wall. It didn't so much as flinch. From behind it came a dark, thick, and sticky smoke, likely a representation of his loneliness. It asked what a young one like them was doing in that room, still with its sight fixed to the painting. How long was this abnormality aware? Asking if they were interested in hearing its stories. If leaving without listening, they tried to walk out of the room and close the door, but that was when a desolate smoke was surging and bursting through the narrow gap. They quickly closed the door shut, but a cloud of smoke was leaking through the gap, and all of them they lost 30 SP. If they agreed to listen to its stories, it cautions them that the stories were so long that they might end up as old as him when they were hearing one. They all end in one way. It wanted to go home, but it couldn't make it. It gave a long sign. It wished to let go of the painting and told them to get it off the wall and take it with them. He'd be better off that way. If they left the painting where it was looking at it purely to admire it. It was a gaze that became an obsession. It asked why they left it in a shaky voice, along with a hint of relief, saying that it's the home that he can't go back to. It saddened him just to look, but he couldn't do it. The abnormality's mind wouldn't be at ease. While it was painful that they chose to leave the painting be, it thanked them and handed them a glowing thing and went back to staring at the painting. They gained 50 costs, but lost 15 HP. Sorry, no, not HP, 15 SP. Why am I getting those confused? If they chose to take the painting, it resulted in a creeping feeling weighing on their backs, where they found more of the sticky smoke was gushing out of it. It said that it was its only home. The murmur felt like a wail, and when they tried to put it back, it shouted at them not to do that, to take it. It's made up its mind, to take it and leave before it takes their home. They left the place in a hurry with the EGO gift homeward, where 12% of all the allies' maximum HP was healed when entering a combat encounter. Yes, another one that's useful for those that need to take the beating to replenish SP, like Sun Shower and the One Who Shall Grip. Yes, Heathcliff and Sinclair respectively, due to their delicate balance, with making sure that SP is neither too low or too high. Well, that's certainly with Sunshower Heathcliff's case, but with Sinclair, it's a struggle to make sure that EGO corrosion doesn't happen. Now let's talk about the abnormality Tomorrow's Expression. This is an aberration of today's shy look, an abnormality where how it's dealt with depends on the face that is selected at the time. The happier it is, the weaker it will hit. The angrier it is, the harder it will hit. As for the aberration, upon meeting it, they met a thing wearing human skin, dancing in place. Clicking and creaking, it spotted them, clopping like a spider and talking to them. It made that face yesterday. What face do they think that they should make tomorrow? What face should they make? If the dam doesn't suggested a smile, this resulted in a creepy laughter to that suggestion, so it did that, which led to stiffened skin being stretched and the faces hastily shifting. It was then that they realized that their skill was taken, and those without sloth affinity would lose 15 HP, and those that did have sloth affinity healed for 20 HP. If told to cry and cry until it sank, this led to ear-piercing cries of what felt like countless lives versing forth. It was disorienting, and when it stopped, it left only weathered minds. Any that lacked sloth affinity lost 15 SP, and any that did have sloth affinity gained 15 SP. I must stop getting those two confused. Yes. With happy it's SP, with crying it's SP. No. Stop getting those confused! Sorry. Yes, with being happy it's HP, with crying it's SP. Now, if told not to make any expression, it asks, how does it do that? Then after some confused sounds and rapid spins, only a leather mask remained. This was the EGO gift, Tomorrow's Expression, where upon defeating an enemy using either sloth or blunt damage, this boosts blunt skill power by 2 until the end of the next turn. Ooh, now this would be useful for Lu Association identities, and also Rodier's Dicey Association identity, as they're big on blunt damage. So basically, if you have a lot of blunt damage, get this one. Now for the funeral of a dying butterfly. Now this is certainly an aberration of a funeral of dead butterflies, which is a butterfly-headed figure carrying a coffin that unleashes black and white butterflies at those that it encounters when it's breaching. They were then in an alleyway of black and white. The single street lamp lit the path, making the scene more hazy. Someone was standing in the light. The device in the abnormality's arm was sounding an alarm. It was saying that the results of the job interview for the big company it had last month was out today. All on that street prepared for exams and interviews, waiting for the results to be announced. Sorry, I went film noir there. Taking all that they have on them, and once they're told that they failed, they go far away and disappear. It changed its mind. It'd like to fly away even if it didn't make it, wanting them to check the results for it. The device displayed that it didn't pass. If asked, they passed, and they told the abnormality that it passed, it thanked them, and they'd be going now. The orientation is probably starting soon. It held out a coat in one hand, not needing it anymore. It then walks away to carry pollen. They hoped that the small beam of sunshine shone over its destination, and they gained 50 cost. If the truth was told, however, and they were told that they failed, the coat it held on one hand fell to the ground, and the plastic bag in the other hand began to rustle. Seeing this as fortunate, it figured that this was the case. Asking, where can it go to die? Will there be a flower blooming at its last destination? The butterfly on the head then flew into the sky, and the body collapsed to the ground, and the human head rolled out of the bag. A heavy husk for that pupa to leave behind. It also left the curriculum vitae EGO gift, where if at the end of the turn anyone has 7 or more charge, they gained 1 haste next turn. Now for the children in the flask. In a room that the damned dozen visited, something that creaked, squeaked, and shook stood before them. Inside this complex-looking glass structure was a pink liquid, which heaved whenever the liquid container shook, or it might be the liquid's movement that caused the glass body to move. The liquid seemed to consist of multiple beings and things. Each droplet had a face. One sad-looking droplet was being pushed away by mean-faced peers. The glass giant trembled, and the pink droplet was ejected. The droplet was crying. If the pink droplet was comforted, a check was made that favoured lust and pride. If successful, there was the question on how to do this. The sinner chosen did what they could to lift its spirits. It seemed to have worked. It could be free thanks to them, or it felt like it said that. It disappeared from view, and then an object looking like a big glass container was left in its place, and the EGO gift was gained. If failed, the attempt to lift its spirits failed. It was still gloomy, but the droplets left something for their trouble for trying, handing half of itself and then disappearing. They were refreshed, and the chosen was healed by 30 HP and 30 SP, while the others were healed for 12 HP and 12 SP. If they attempted to put it back where it came from, a check was made that favoured gloom and envy. If successful, they tried to put it back where it seemed to belong. It was lifted and pushed right back into the giant glass container. They watched. The face of the droplet was filled with terror, contempt, anger, and loathing, as it slid down the tube, telling them that they shouldn't have done that. It might have looked like a droplet in their eyes, but to it, this place was hell. Looking at the glass container, they felt something within their hearts cracking, and the Chosen would lose 25 SP, yes. 25 SP would be lost. And if this check failed, similar to this, they didn't want to be there, but it was also in agony. It bounced off and slid from view. The Chosen believed that this was a terrible mistake. As for the child within the flask EGO gift, this would grant 1 EGO resource for each affinity at the start of the battle. Now for the Star Luminary. Now this is likely a Child of Galaxy aberration. The Child of Galaxy being an abnormality that gives those that visit it a pebble. This pebble heals them as long as they have it, but if they visit anyone else, it doesn't like that, and if too many do so, or if they do so too many times, it causes problems by killing all those with pebbles. As for the aberration, it's a multi-armed being that was behind a backdrop of stars glowing blue in the dark. Then, what looked like stars from a distance, they weren't actually stars, they were actually blue marbles in their hands. It claimed that they were stars, as if it was reading your mind and knew what they were thinking. If told that they were marbles, a check would take place that favoured gloom and envy. If successful, they told that it was holding marbles that it was holding, which it saw. That's how they saw it. It remained tranquil, as if they knew that they'd say that, letting them see it that way. It then disappeared, gently waving the marbles. It felt like they learned an important truth. All were healed of 33 SP, and started the next battle with 2 EGO resources of all affinities. If they failed, it was more questioning. When it was holding that they were marbles, asking what a star was in the first place. Specks of light floating in the dark. That is what is called stars. It gently waved the marbles in their hands. It said that stars were what was in the mind, so those blue marbles are stars, saying this in an upright manner. It disappeared, telling them that it'll go to the blue star, or healed of 33 SP, and then started the next battle with 2 more skill power. If they agreed that they were stars, there was the same check as the other option, but if successful, seeing the numerous hues of light in them, they ought to be stars. It wants to return to the blue star someday. They asked if that was where it was from, and will it be able to go there? It asks that they think so too, but they want to return to their place. They nodded. Despite not knowing where it might be, they knew that they weren't from it, but they felt an urge to go back to it. It gave a blue star that it was holding to them, and disappeared. This was the EGO gift. If they failed, it was unsure that it could go back to it, saying that in a melancholic tone. It was just waving its arms and emitting the blue glow to become the star itself. There was a whistling noise and it vanished into thin air. They felt lighter after that. All were healed of 33 SP and started the next battle with 1 more skill power. The EGO gift was tomorrow's future, which increased the number of options when choosing an EGO gift from that point onwards by 1. Next is a fragment of this world's history. The forefront of the Smoke War. Now, this is likely an aberration of the shelter from the 27th of March. That abnormality makes whoever is inside it safe, but it causes a random abnormality containment unit to breach or otherwise have adverse effects on the facility every 5 seconds that they're in there. As that's the amount of time it takes until someone is healed in there. At least until they leave it. While the aberration of this abnormality isn't anything to do with sheltering from the horrors of the smoke war. This aberration captured the same horrors in the front line. A representation of war is hell. And what was seen was snakes, insects, or a symbolization of fulfilled peace. A fence of wire and countless corpses caught up in it, and still moving. Sacks of flesh entangled in painful ways. The remains of those that perished in the smoke war, more like a living thing, wondering where the smoke war may have been taking place. The wire was a line crossed between one and another, a separator. It also bound the corpses, and the rusted, blood-stained wire squeezed them, so that their flesh and eyes met. If someone within the damn dozen snuck up and removed parts of the wire, a check was made that favoured sloth and gluttony, while it stood still. And this is if it passed. They chosen carefully approached it. They removed a part of this wire. Those found to it might find momentary peace. Yes, those that were bound to it, rather. And they took a piece of this wire, and it was surprisingly easy to do so. The flesh showed no lumps at all. It's as though they were telling them that this wouldn't be remotely sufficient to free them from what they suffered that day. And they gained the EGO gift. If they failed, they carefully approached this. Sadly, they weren't familiar with the wire structure. The hand twisted and got dragged into the wire in an instant. It said to get out quickly. The arm was pulled out thanks to the help of several people, but they were still left mangled. Oh well, nothing that Dante can't fix at the end of this, although the Chosen would lose 30 HP. If they cut the tip of a finger to drop their blood on it, a check was made that favoured lust and pride. If successful, it asked if it was by pity or some kind of sympathy, or was it the idea of sharing the pain that might reduce their burden? The drops of blood fell from the tip of the hand and seeped into the flesh, little by little. It responded, approaching as if to look down on them. Maybe it saw them as the same as those that perished in the thick fog. When it opened its mouth with a pitiful look, a glowing object was inside, possibly a small token of consolation that it was offering. The Chosen would receive 7 HP in healing. Actually, no, they'd receive 7 HP damage, but gain 60 cost. If they failed, the same gesture made them all scream at once, to rampage in unison. They were not part of that war, nor did they witness it. They could not associate with or understand them in any way. It was a fit of hasty arrogance. The damned dozen had to flee from that place, leaving a raging thing behind. Okay, I can see a flaw in this. There is one that is a confirmed smoke war veteran, Gregor, so theoretically it would be impossible for him to fail this check. Now that's something that they likely didn't consider. The EGO gift is smoke and wires, where if bleed is inflicted, twice as much is inflicted, and those enemies with bleed They lose 2 speed in the next turn. Ooh. Those that can inflict bleed, certainly with the Kurokumo clan and Rabbit Heathcliff, they would find this one especially useful, as it would make the bleed worse. Next we have the Heavenly Commander's Throne. A giant lizard-like thing with a cold skin of a machine that stood before them. Its long tail was shaped like a human hand that bended in all directions before straightening to point at them. It told them that the Heavenly Commander is why that it served. It is the duty of the Commander's servant to follow commands. It wanted them to tell it what they commanded. If death was commanded, a check was made that favoured sloth and envy. If successful, it understood this. Due to a great sense of purpose in their voice, it shall carry this command out. It disappeared after a short reply, and a loud noise rang from the distance. They felt their bodies grow lighter and invigorated. All allies would be healed for 24 HP and 24 SP. And if failed, it understood, but they found no sense of purpose in their voice, speaking without knowing why the command was to be made, and would punish them for this meaningless command. The hand on its tail came forth, and all allies lost 36 HP and 36 SP. If life was commanded, a check was made that favoured lust and gluttony. If successful, life was commanded to it. It understood, as a great sense of purpose was detected in the voice. It shall carry out that command. Disappearing after a short reply, brisk steps were heard as they went over their head. A shiny thing fell from above. Was this its thanks? And 60 cost was gained. If failed, the response was the same as if it was commanding death, and 60 cost was lost. If nothing was commanded, a check was made that favoured gloom and pride. If successful, no command was given, which confused the abnormality as it believed that none can go without giving commands. Its tail was swaying menacingly. They hastily waved their hands and gave an excuse. Then the command was understood, seeing what they wanted. They asked themselves if this elicited its response. A command shall be carried out, and it left a mysterious object before leaving. The EGO gift. If failed, when it said that none can go without giving commands, seeing them as committing the crime of neglecting to command even themselves, the crime of neglecting that obligation will be punished rightly. Their improvised excuse didn't work, and the tail swung their way in an arc. All allies lost 18 HP and 18 SP. The EGO gift was the Thorny Path. After dealing HP damage with a skill that inflicted sinking, 3 sinking with 2 sinking count would be inflicted on the target at the end of the turn, once per enemy per turn, and when Lust Absolute Resonance was achieved, 2 sinking with 3 sinking counts would be inflicted on all enemies, or 1 random abnormality part at the start of the combat phase. Ooh, yeah, definitely one for K-Corp Honglu. Or at least those capable of activating the Lust Absolute Resonance, although you need to select the team carefully with that to make sure that it's actually possible. Let's move on to Sleepyhead. In what resembled a toy shop, a long-necked thing with a hammer on its head that resembled a toy stood well, somewhat stood. It looks like it could fall from its precarious stature at any point, and as suspected, its head slammed the floor, unable to withstand the weight of the steel. The flask on its back may have to be filled for the hammer to be lifted back up. If the sinners forcibly grabbed the head to lift it back up, it shook for a moment before dropping down again. The neck had no semblance of strength, tilting downward without aim, leaving the hollow ringing of the floor and the broken neck behind. They moved on. If it was filled with the sinner's blood, a check was taking place that favoured lust and gloom. If successful, the flask on its back filled with blood. The weight sated it and the head lifted from the floor, pointing at the ceiling. The Chosen lost 10 HP and gained the EGO gift. If this failed, more blood spilled than expected. They fell to the floor, as if becoming the hammer, sated with the blood within the flask. It lifted its head and pointed to the ceiling. The Chosen lost both 25 HP and SP, and the EGO gift was gained anyway, that being the Voracious Hammer. After winning a combat encounter, each defeated enemy would grant 3 cost each. Let's talk about the Golden Grip next. They entered a room where they saw 5 appendages protruding from an urn. Could that be a palm or a naked person who put their head in a golden urn? What was in it to make that person shove their face into it? And as if that wasn't enough, the body turned into a hand and tried to grasp everything it could. If it finally took hold of everything in the world, would its grip loosen? If the head was removed from the urn, a check was made that favoured lust and sloth. If successful, they tried to lightly remove it like brushing off dust, which was an affront to the greed, though that it refused to dissipate even after shoving the head into it. The hand reached out to them and a battle took place. If failed, they thought that they could pull it out but couldn't move it forward. It grasped their coattails until the end. They were sapped of strength, bound by the dreadful tenacity of the abnormality. The Chosen lost 20 HP and 20 SP. If it was hugged and the giant body was shaken, a check was made that favoured gluttony and pride. If successful, to hug was to embrace another. The fingers that were stretching to grasp things clasped with another's appendages for the first time. Between this, there was a warmth of blood beginning to circulate. This loosened the rigid greed. 50 cost was gained and the EGO gift was acquired. If failed, the basic manners of clearing sweat from the hand before extending it for a handshake was neglected. The hand slipped and the empty palm wriggled as if to seek another left hand to grasp. It no longer tried to recklessly grab things, seemingly fulfilled by the attempt. This resulted in the Chosen losing 15 HP and 20 cost was gained. As for the EGO gift, that's the Golden Urn, where 20% more cost was gained on winning a combat encounter. Although starter buffs and other EGO gifts do not affect this. Finally, for now at least, we have the Drunkard. The air was thick with steam in what appeared to be a brewery. The steam was a brown colour, and beyond it was a voice, one that believed that it was right to drink straight from the bottle, asking them if they like booze. If they say that they did, they'd have a check that favoured sloth and gluttony. If successful, saw this as good and handed them a drink. It was a hard, burning liquid rampaging around the body. It liked the way they drank it. A steadily floating sensation was followed by the feeling that they were in better shape. It noted that they were feeling the magic at work. It was medicinal booze, suggesting that they take another shot. After a few shots, they left with gleeful steps. The Chosen was healed by 20 HP and 20 SP and gained 100 cost. If they failed, it handed them a drink. It felt hard and burning as the liquid flowed through the body. It asked them if they were alright. Nausea was felt followed by the view of slowly turning to the right. It saw this as a shame. It was a good drink. Their body just didn't agree with it, suggesting that they stopped drinking it. They tried to hold their eyes, and the world started spinning. They left in a hurry, and the way out was accompanied by bumps and slams into walls, which was blurred out of their memory. The Chosen then lost 25 HP and SP. Yeah, clearly that scenario they had a low alcohol tolerance. Those that said that they didn't, it was disgusted with them, saying that they hated it because they hadn't tasted a good one, handing something to them. When refused again, it was confused why they didn't drink any of the precious stuff. It was still rejected. This dampened the mood. Yes, it dampened the mood, and it walked off into the Vale of Steam, leaving behind the EGO gift that was Blood, Sweat and Tears, which caused 10% more damage to staggered enemies, and if the attack affinity was Sloth, it was caused 20% more damage instead. Yes, I can think of a few that would do that. Let's see. Dicey Association Rodia, most of the Lu Association, K-Corp Honglu, Spicebush Yisang. I think even Zwei Sinclair could do that. Okay, that's all for now, but I will do more once they appear. Yes, I know, I've been putting this off for a while, but finally I have done this. Until next time, hail the rabbit!